There are some incredibly chilling stories, paranormal activity, and even ghosts caught on camera within Disney parks. From after-hours ghost sightings caught on camera to ghosts that ride in your vehicle or meet you at the exit. Unexplained, creepy, and chilly moments make up today's list, and stick around later to hear about how one man might have debunked most of these popular hauntings. Join me as we explore 7 creepy paranormal events at Disney parks.
Please stand clear of the doors.
Now look, I must admit I'm a skeptic when it comes to hauntings and ghost stories, but this one on the list just creeps me out because there are so many stories of people who claim to have encountered Mr. One-Way. You'll be waiting in the line at Space Mountain and you encounter a giant man with a reddish face and reddish beard. You'll have a conversation with him about Disney, but he doesn't seem to be up to date on most of the things that have been going on since the 1970s. You don't really pay attention, you're just excited to go on the ride, and Mr. One-Way sits with you on the ride. Halfway through it though, he disappears. Well, there are many stories that kind of go like this, and Mr. One-Way is said to have been a man who died on the ride in the 1970s, but here's the creepy part. There was some Disney footage caught of Mr. One-Way on video. Check this out. If it's not clear from this one that you just watched, watch this next one slow down. You see the red arrow points at the ghostly apparition, walks across the loading dock into the ride as it pulls away. If that's not chilling, let me know what you think. Did we just see Mr. One-Way? If you are familiar with Disney park lore in any way, you'll be familiar with George. I even have my own haunting encounter that I'm going to share with you. Now, there are a few variations of George myths, but the basic are as follows. George was a construction worker hired to help build Pirates of the Caribbean, and during the construction, he either fell or was crushed, and he died instantly. Now, keep in mind, this story has been well debunked, and there absolutely is no documentation about George ever have been working on it. It's a well-known thing that cast members begin their day by saying good morning, George, or end it by saying good night, George, because if they don't, they're in for a long day. Cast members have said that they've reportedly seen ghostly apparitions on the monitors and received phone calls from no one, all thanks to George. Now here's my story. My brother and I went to Disney in the 1990s, and we were in the boat going into the scene where they say that you're supposed to feel the presence of George. And just as we went through that area, we felt a chilling gust of Arctic wind, and it felt so eerie and creepy, and we looked up. We saw the leg of an animatronic, but it looked very real. To this day, we've always told that story, and not until recently did we realize that we might have seen George the Ghost. There's a ghost story about a cast member who was a bellhop working on Platform D and loading guests into the attraction. Suddenly, he dropped dead on the spot and came right onto Platform D. There's been many different accounts of the stories, and no one really knows how he dies, but it all ends in one thing. At the end of the night, the bellhop had to ride through and make sure the attraction is running as it should. And weird things happen in that attraction, like it would shut down and freeze, lights would go out. Some have even said that a ghostly figure would appear in the boiler room of the Tower of Terror. A few years ago, there was a couple of different videos that reportedly showed ghost sightings. This first one is a kid that's recording outside of the Tower of Terror, and he points the camera up and you clearly see what looks like a ghost, or it could just be something that Disney has for theming. But then this one, the maintenance worker is inside, checking on the ride to make sure that it works. And then you can see it. A ghostly apparition appears above him and then beside him. This has a lot of people puzzled, and quite frankly, a lot of skeptics say that it was probably just made up. Could be a double exposure. We don't really know, but that is a creepy and bone-chilling video. I would love to know your thoughts. Is that the Tower of Terror bellhop ghost? Number 4 is a pretty simple one. The end of the night fireworks shows at Disney are a great way to end your day. This woman was in for a surprise though. She shot the fireworks at Disneyland. When she got back home and watched the footage over, she noticed a ghostly figure with his back turned to the audience. Some say this is a maintenance worker enjoying the show, but that doesn't seem very Disney. Watch this. Let me know what you think. There's a story written by a cast member named Michael, and this is what he says. I worked the Orlando Haunted Mansion in 1978. At the time, a story about the man with the cane was already circulating. I was told he would appear in an empty dune buggy in the load area late at night when ride operators were by themselves at the load position. The story goes that a girl was working late one night and they had gone down to the stretch room and the crowds were light. This meant there was usually a lapse in guests between stretch room dumps. This left you, the operator, alone for a few minutes, walking the load belt, listening to the music and sound effects, peering into the darkness that stretched into the ride at one end from the unload area to the other. So one night when this hostess was working, the dune buggy rounds the corner with a man sitting in the middle of the seat, looking very gaunt, staring straight ahead, hands resting on a cane positioned in front of him. The operator tried to make eye contact with him and said hello, and the man did not respond, but instead disappeared with the dune buggy as it works its way through the ride. The hostess goes to the load console, called the unload operator on the phone to say, "Who was that you just sent me? He wouldn't say hello." To which the unload operator responded, "I didn't send anyone to you." They contacted their lead, all waited for the car to come out of the ride, and of course when it did, it was empty. Also, this YouTuber Dizzy Bear claims to have been going through the haunted mansion, and he caught a ghost on camera. This camera happens in the wishing well area. As the camera goes up to the Snow White statue, you can see a faint outline of a person sitting near the statues. There's been many deaths through the years through Disneyland, and believers in ghosts swear that this is proof, along with the fireworks video, that there are ghosts in Disney. Watch one more time and let me know what you think. Here's a video from a CCTV camera that was leaked, and some believe that this is Walt Disney. You can clearly see a man or an outline of a man walking down the path, then he passes through the gate. This isn't the first time someone has suggested Walt haunts the parks. There's a story circulating about a cleaning lady. She was cleaning the apartment that Walt used to sleep in above the firehouse, and there's a lamp in the window. And the story goes that whenever he was in the park, he lit the lamp, and it was a way of letting other cast members know he was on site. One night after Walt's death, a cast member was cleaning the apartment and turned off the light as she left. However, upon reaching street level, she saw that the lamp was on again. She returned and extinguished the light, but again it came back on, and in some versions of the story, the lamp was even unplugged, and somehow still came back on. Today, the lamp in the window is just left on and burning to symbolize the fact that Walt is always there in spirit. Now those were some creepy hauntings and stories, but remember when I said there might be an explanation? In 2020, filmmaker Christopher Cantwell made a confession on Twitter. Oh, and also internet, we did these too. The famous Disneyland ghost videos. Yep, us. Stuntmen dressed in white laid over clean footage out through video effects overlays shot in the park overnight. I love that they live on. And then he clarifies, and I mean the videos this guy is referencing, and he posts an offhand Disney video, the Haunted Mansion, CCTV, Space Mountain, Tower of Terror, and this one. Our stunt member was on a crane behind the castle during the fireworks show. Every video this guy references is one of ours, he goes on to say, and it's done with our stuntman, filmed in one night from close to open. Haunted Mansion was filmed from the roof of Pirates of the Caribbean. We were in Space Mountain for hours with the lights on. Employees do not perform maintenance on the Tower of Terror like this. I'll leave it up to you to decide if you believe Christopher Cantwell, as there have been many other ghost stories and hauntings besides these ones that I mentioned today. Also, I wanted to give a special shout out to one that didn't make the list, but it is creepy in its own right. There have been reports that It's a Small World comes to life at night, but let's face it, it's a very creepy attraction. What I mean by it comes to life is the dolls switch places, they disappear, they end up in the rafters. A lot of cast members have reported some very weird things. Now this ride is so creepy, in fact, that there was even a secret horror movie filled in there that Disney didn't authorize. You'll want to watch this video next to get the full details. I'll see you next week, pal.